It's been a while since we've talked about my absolute favorite topic, and that is, of course, campaign throughput. If you have been watching this channel for a while, you know that I'm a massive fan of the LV Mix campaigns for two reasons, because it saves you money and it helps you avoid filtering for drift content. But what really is the difference between an LV Mix campaign and a standard campaign? And if you are on GoHighLevel, which should you be selecting? Today, we're going to dig into exactly that topic. Hi, my name is Will Craig. I'm a co-founder of a company called Signal House. We are a messaging provider that specializes in connectivity for CRMs and marketing platforms, but we can power any messaging from an application to a person or from a software system to a person's handset and vice versa, from a handset to a software system. And we do this through the process of 10DLC, application to person messaging. And so sounds very complex, but it's pretty simple. 10DLC just stands for 10-digit long code. These are the phone numbers that we all know and use every single day, where the first 3 digits corresponds to an area code within the United States. Application to person just means what I said earlier, software to handset. So it's the process by which a business is able to register and provision a 10-digit number to a messaging campaign or their messaging use case and be able to actually send out traffic to the carriers. And in today's video, we're going to be digging into the different types of campaigns and why you on GoHighLevel should know exactly what kind of campaign to use for you and your sub accounts. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump right in. So if you're watching this video, I have to think that you already have a pretty good understanding of 10DLC registration. But if not, let's do a quick dive into the process. So it's a 2-step review for 10DLC registration. The first step is a brand review. So it's you submit your brand, which is really just your business information. And that process for approval is just lining up your business name and the EIN provided and the type of business that you are, like private profit, public profit, or nonprofit, for example. And so once you've done that, you now move on to the campaign review and the campaign submission. And a campaign is really just your messaging use case. And that's where we get into really the two different types of campaigns we're talking about today, standard and low volume. And so there's a couple differences and a couple nuances that you need to be aware of when you are selecting a different type of campaign on GoHighLevel. And so when you are looking at a low volume mix versus a standard campaign, the first thing that you need to be aware of is scalability. How many messages can you actually do both per minute and per day on a low volume mixed versus a standard campaign? With low volume mix, you're able to do 75 SMS per minute with AT&T, 50 MMS per minute with AT&T, and you have a maximum daily throughput of 2,000 to T-Mobile and an overall maximum throughput of 6,000 messages per day. And with a low volume mixed campaign, you can choose one or more use cases. The low volume mixed is really just a high level use case, and then you choose one or more of customer care, marketing, account notifications, delivery notifications, 2FA, kind of the list goes on. But you are able to choose up to 5 of those sub use cases within a low volume mixed campaign. And again, 50 MMS per minute for AT&T, 75 SMS per minute AT&T, 2,000 daily for T-Mobile, 6,000 total daily. So that's LV mixed. Now let's look at standard. Standard, you're choosing a dedicated use case. Or they do have a standard mixed. We'll get to that in a little bit. But in general, if you're choosing standard, you're most likely choosing a dedicated use case. So this would be customer care only, marketing only, etc. And the throughput that you get on a standard campaign is quite a bit higher, and it is more scalable than a low volume campaign. Let me explain that. So to start, you were getting 240 SMS per minute with AT&T, 120 MMS per minute with AT&T. You are getting 2,000 per day with T-Mobile to start, but you can actually increase this. And there's no 6,000 daily segment limit. You can send as many as you want to, given the constraints. So if you take 240 per minute and multiply that out for AT&T, you can kind of get a grasp of how many you can totally send in a day. But in general, those are the limits that you have for a standard campaign. And when I say that these are scalable. What I mean by that is that through a process called standard vetting, which we do have a ton of videos on our channel already, you are able to increase your throughput. And you can increase this up to 200,000 T-Mobile messages per day, so 100xing how many you're able to send, as well as 4,500 AT&T message segments per minute, and a total of 2,400 MMS segments per minute with AT&T. And so you can get up to that amount with a standard campaign. With an LV Mix, you are locked in at that lower threshold. But there's also a cost difference. For LV Mix, it's $1.50 per month, and it's $10 per month for a standard campaign. So if you look at how many text messages you're able to send when your text message pricing is 0075 or whatever the case may be, you can add up. There's a lot of text messages that are within that $8.50 different per month. And obviously you can use that money in different areas of your business, and you should tie an ROI to every single message that you're sending. You should make sure you're getting your money's worth for the messages that you're sending. So for people who are sending less than 6,000 message segments per day, I 100% recommend that you go low volume mixed. And there's two reasons for that. The first reason is that it saves you money. It's $1.50 per month versus $10 per month. And over the course of a year, that of course adds up pretty substantially. And again, you could use that money elsewhere. You could use it to send out more text messages. You could use it to send out more MMS messages. You could use it for subscribing to a different software solution that costs $8.50 a month. That's a Loom, that's a Canva. Like, you're looking at products that you could use for your business for that amount of money. So I always want to make sure that you're getting your money's worth for your messaging. So that's the first thing. But the second thing is protection against what we call drift content. Drift content was a really big thing that the Direct Connect aggregators, or DCAs, these are upstream of your messaging provider. There's 4 of them in the United States. They're the gatekeepers between messaging providers and the carriers. So they are the facilitators of messaging to the carriers, and they have different mandates that they are really focusing on from year to year to crack down on bad actors within the messaging ecosystem. And drift content was a big topic in 2024. So what is that? That is where you sign up for a specific type of messaging, but that content they're actually sending drifts outside of that use case. And so the example that I always like to give is, let's say that you are an auto detailer. And so you are an auto shop. People come to you to fix their car after it gets in an accident. And so you send out a text message to one of your customers that was a billing notification. So you just say, "We successfully received your payment. Thank you so much." So that could be an account notification. So that's one use case. They respond to you and they say, "Hey, thanks so much. However, I'm actually still hearing an engine noise that I am not quite sure of, and I don't really like it, and it gives me anxiety." And so you respond to them and you say, "Hey, that totally makes sense. Let's troubleshoot this a little bit. Let me know, is it making the sound when you accelerate, when you hit the brake?" So you really dial in what it is. And then you figure out the issue and you go, "Oh, I know exactly what that is. If you come back, we will go ahead and make that change. We'll cut off this amount of money for it, and we'll give it to you at a 50% discount, yada, yada, yada." And you move on there. So you've only had a very short amount of messages that have been sent to this customer. It started out account notification, and then when they wanted you to troubleshoot the issue, that moved into customer care. And then when you pitched them the solution and gave them a discount on pricing and everything else, that can be considered marketing. Now, the carriers and the DCAs do give you a relatively large brush to paint with when it comes to this, but they are looking for patterns. And if you have a pattern of having a customer care or account notification campaign, and that drifts into other use cases, especially marketing, that's one of the ones they're looking for the most, then you could end up having your messages filtered or having outreach from your messaging provider saying, "Hey, you need to create a new campaign that has marketing as part of it as well," or your campaign might get shut down. That is something that can happen for drift content. But if you are using an LV Mix campaign and you have chosen all 3 of those sub use cases, you're now protected because you can drift from account notifications all the way to marketing, back and forth, and there's no problem because you are signed up for those use cases. And so what if you need more throughput, but you also want to have the ability to choose multiple use cases? Can you have your cake and eat it too? The answer is yes, you actually can. So there is a standard campaign that is a mixed use standard campaign. Now with this one, you have to choose at least 2 sub use cases, because if you didn't, then you could just choose a standard dedicated use case. So you have to have at least 2, but customer care marketing, I would always recommend. Account notification is also kind of a good one that can sometimes be pretty gray with customer care, but I would definitely make sure that you have customer care and marketing. So if you are above that 6,000 segments a day, go ahead and go standard. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about, because conceptualizing 6,000 messaging segments per day is relatively difficult to do, and I understand that. So what's a good rule of thumb when it comes to database management? Here's what I say. If you are adding 100 people or more each month, I would go standard. And the reason for that is because you're going to be conversationally messaging with all 100 of these individuals. And so if you, let's say, have a 75% response rate, that's 75 people that are adding to your database each day. And if you are doing conversational messaging where you're going to be working through a deal with them or whatever the case may be, the cumulative volume over the course of a month of adding 100 people every single day is going to get to a point to where you will need more than 6,000 segments. So you, of course, need to have a standard campaign, standard mixed campaign. Now, here's one thing that I think is very valuable is that if you have an LV mixed campaign and you exceed your threshold, I know a question you're asking is, can I just transfer that to a standard campaign? Unfortunately, the answer is no. You have to create a new campaign and then you can transfer it over. However, this process is pretty simple. If you're working with someone like Signal House that can get your campaigns approved in 48 hours, you just submit a standard campaign. You wait that 48 hours, it gets approved, and then you move your number over, and then that campaign is able to send at the higher volume level. And so I hope that this was very helpful. I hope that you gained some knowledge from this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. We put out videos 5 days a week. A friendly reminder on the GoHighLevel front is that our GoHighLevel app is launching in under 30 days. And when it does launch, it is going to change the game for SMS messaging on GoHighLevel. If you're an agency owner and you are sick and tired of having to go through rough onboarding processes where you have to create funnels for people, where you have to copy and paste out campaign descriptions, message flows, etc., and then even with doing that, you're not sure if you're going to get approved or not, Signal House is going to change that for you. We're going to generate those websites and landing pages for you. We're going to generate the campaign description and message flow for you. And we're going to use the best practices that we have learned through working directly with our DCA partners, where we are tri-redundant and we are connected to 3 out of the 4 DCAs in the United States. So our messaging is always going to deliver and you are going to have an exceptional experience on Signal House. So anyway, thank you so much and we'll see you in the next video.